Welcome, everyone. Today I have a special guest, Teresa Kitchens, and we did a segment on confidence on her podcast. So today we're going to talk about a portion of confidence, which is a lot of us are suffering from imposter syndrome. And so we're going to go and dive in deep with this. So Teresa, tell the audience though a little bit about you, because they got to know me in the first segment, but I would love for them to hear about your background. And then after that, just dive into a moment where you felt this.
Yeah. Oh, I wouldn't even know where to begin with a moment, you know. But
For
like you,
moments.
right, a moment. Okay, so my name is Teresa Kitchens. I own the Sterling Insurance Group. We have locations in Dallas, Austin, and Denver, and I've owned the agency for 20 years as of March 15th. So we just passed that milestone. So that was a really big, awesome thing. But I really got into the insurance industry because my dad was with Allstate, and the mold crisis hit Texas, and 20 years ago, and like they couldn't write anything, and he said he had to non-compete. So I was actually a stay-at-home mom, not licensed, never worked in insurance, and my dad was like, "Why don't we just have you sign this contract over here? It's not a big deal." And I totally thought that my undergrad degree is elementary education. I thought for sure I was eventually going to go back into teaching because I was a stay-at-home mom at that time. But I entered the insurance world, and 20 years later, here we are. And we have a wonderful agency with 9 team members. And we are virtual, which is kind of a little unique. It's not as unique as it used to be, but we have team members all over the country that work with us. And we're honored to be able to be building a agency where we can support and grow other people, their lives, as well as their careers. So that's my passion point, is making sure that everybody on my team is, I always call it happy, healthy, wealthy, and wise. That's what I like to make sure that we all kind of pursue. But that's a little bit about me. I'm married. I've got kids and all of that good stuff. So it's been a fun time building the agency the last 20 years.
Yeah.
As far as a moment, and I'm going to pull on my history here, because coming from an elementary education background, teaching and having that training, but then being a stay-at-home mom for 9 years, and then going into insurance and not even having a license when I opened up my agency, the idea that as my business has grown, that I am a successful person or a successful business owner is something I've always fought with. I always wanted my dad, or I always wanted somebody else to be the leader. And I wanted to be the person who was kind of like that backbone to them. I never really wanted to be that front end. And back in 2014, I had a slew of different things that happened. And I went through a huge identity crisis, because I just said, I don't want to be that person. That's not who I'm supposed to be. But I had to get to a point where in 2014, I looked at all the pieces of my life, and that means all the pieces of my life. And I just said, God in the universe is telling me nobody else is coming. There is no knight in shining armor here who's going to come and make my life amazing. And I get to eat bonbons and lay on the couch and have people fanning me all day long. And I get to live the life of luxury. And I said, if it's going to be, I got to step up, because everything in my life said, Teresa, you're the one that has been destined to be in this space. So you need to rise. And so I did, and I've started it. But I got to say, that conversation in the back of my head is still something that I fight with on a fairly regular basis. Just, why do you think you have something of value? Why do you think that you're the person who could run this team? Why do you think you're the person who needs to say, what are your goals? Why do you feel like you need to be this mentor or this coach, even to my own team? But then over the course of the last few years, I've been honored that that's even gone throughout the industry in a lot of different ways. And even starting the podcast, Power Women in Insurance, I'm like, why would people want to hear my voice? And I even default to trying to have other people on way more than me, just because I'm such a nerd. I want to learn from everybody. I feel like I need to know. But at the same point, I know and I understand that I do have a lot to bring to the table, but it is still just a constant conversation that I have in my head. But 2014 for me was a big turning space.
That's so interesting. I feel like sometimes when I talk to you that we have these weird parallels in our life together. And
Yeah.
like I was an elementary school teacher before I did insurance.
Yep.
And then 2014 was a pivotal year for me to get my
Ah.
brain around the fact that I had this voice inside my head that I was just an agent. There's nothing wrong with just being an agent, but I had owned my agency for over a decade and I had owned the group for 6 years. So
Mm.
like that thing in my head was something that I just needed to go like, you can be bigger than this. And you
Yeah.
are bigger than what you are telling yourself. So that's so interesting. Like I said, like every time like I feel like we go back and forth on something, it's like we've got this thing like the universe is talking to both of us at the same time and we're making these transitions at the same time. So
Yeah.
before we got together last time, actually after we got together last time, we did the wise workshop and Sid Rowe and her partner Chris had talked about the imposter syndrome, and ever since then, and they did such an amazing job. First and foremost, it was
I've
awesome to
heard.
see them talk about it from two different perspectives, one within the industry and then one outside of the insurance industry, and from their perspectives, which are a unique perspective. So it's been in my head since then to have this conversation out loud in another broader,
Mm.
bigger way, and have it with you, because KPMG came out with a study that 75% of executive women have felt imposter syndrome, but we're not talking about it. We're not talking about
Mm.
like how do we deal with it, or how maybe it's not as bad as we think. Maybe there's some good points to it too as well. So what kind of things have you like learned to basically make yourself like not feel like an imposter, but put yourself out there and help recognize when you're in that mindset and then get yourself like to a better place?
So I think that self-awareness is really the key. And we kind of talked about that a little bit before we came on, that we have to see what we're thinking. We have to hear what we're thinking. And for me, I'm a big journaler. I love to journal. I do find that whenever I've got like a group of friends that I meet with more frequently, I journal less just because I'm processing out loud, I think, a little bit more. But I love to journal. And whenever I journal, I try to go back to my journaling and I see what I've written. And I think that's really a big key. It's not just about putting all your thoughts and ideas down on paper. It's about going back and seeing and listening to those thoughts. Because if we can have that self-awareness of knowing where these thoughts are coming from, what types of activities trigger these types of thoughts, and then also the concept of being able to overcome them. I read a book back in 2014, which totally changed my life. It's by John Acuff. It's called Go From Average to Awesome. And it is all about how to be able to step over or overcome some of our fears. And at the very, very end of the book, what he says is make a list of those voices, of those things that you're hearing or you're battling. And then from there, write out what would happen if that thing actually happened, and then write out what would happen if it wouldn't happen, and confront it and be able to say, okay, what if I get on that stage, and what if I do make a total mess out of my conversation? Okay, you're going to walk off the stage and go home. It's not like the world's going to end, but sometimes that fear just grips us, right? Sometimes it's that we don't want to have that conversation with a team member, or we don't want to get that extra education because maybe we don't see ourselves as maybe being in that role in the long run. But by being able to identify that and say, that is what's holding me back, that thought, that feeling. And then what we can do is say, do I really want this? And if I do, then what do I need to do to overcome that? And part of that for me, has been, what if this does really happen? And then what if it doesn't? And then by reading that and looking at that, and it helps me to identify it whenever it pops back up again in my brain, because I'll sit back and, we always hear, and I have a lot of people in my life that I love named Karen, but the social word is, Karen in your head, right? And but if I have that voice in my head that I can identify and then somehow call out that it is inappropriate and it does not have space in my in my territory, then I can go ahead and find a way to step over it much easier than if it goes and it talks to me and I go, oh, well, now we're in a conversation and now we're going to feed that voice, right? So we have to find a way to identify it, address it, and then when it pops back up, step over it and be able to move on. And that for me since 2014 has been my challenge, and it's gotten better, but it doesn't ever completely go away. I think that's one thing I misunderstood. I thought by identifying it, I would be able to heal and everything would be zen and we would be just like amazing. And it's still just a constant battle.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting that you say that, because and maybe it's okay not to master, right? Like,
right.
Maybe we just need that because it also gives us other things as well. And I think like having a mentor is like super important. Like you're talking about like having people to talk to, and then you journal it. Like sometimes like I would journal it and say, I can tackle this on my own, but you can't a lot of the time. And it's okay to like verbalize it out loud. It doesn't make you less of a person because you haven't mastered it. I haven't mastered it. You haven't mastered it. And if you have like that's awesome for you. But that voice comes in like so strong. My dad calls it stinking thinking. And so it comes in there. I think some of the times that it comes in for me in the past, which I actually do think I have mastered this part of it, but there's other voices that come sometimes too, is that if you're a woman that strives, you sometimes are the first woman to do something within something. So people will say, oh, well, congratulations, you're the first female that has ever reached this level. Right? And before I was like, oh, wow. I'm like, wait, I'm the person that got there first. and then you're like, wait, what about all the other badasses out there, right?
Yeah.
And so you're like, am I the person that's representing everybody by being the first of whatever it is that, that has come about? But then as I've gone through, a lot of different firsts with, different like achievements, the thing that now is in my head is I get super excited about it is that then no one else has to hear that. That means that I have come before. I can be an example and own being an example of being the first, but then it makes it easier for the next.
Yeah.
And so like if I take myself out of the stinking thinking and then get my head in the game of like take my ego out. Definitely take my ego, put it in check. The imposter syndrome can actually check your ego too. So that's not a bad thing, but it lets you be able to say, maybe this isn't just about me. Maybe this is about showing, other women or even like our daughters or other girls that they can too, reach a certain level that before hadn't been really designated, that we were either A, allowed in that space, or B, that we could achieve and become a part of that space. Yeah. So I think it's like that conversation has helped me go like, now I'm like, okay, I need to be the first in this now. And now I'm excited about it and leaning in, being exciting. Like you were talking about talking, like giving speeches and stuff like that and presentations. And, now, I mean, I was just telling Heather yesterday, my COO, work wife, she does Wise with me. I told her, I was like, 10 years ago, if you would have told me that I would be doing like paid speaking events, I'd be like, you're out of your freaking mind. Yep. There's no way that I am the person that should be up there on the stage. Right. And now I'm like, I want to be that person on the stage. And so that's like, it goes into the conversation about us talking about confidence and building your confidence and building that muscle and getting to that place that the things that were the little voice in your head, the doubts, the fears, that they are now your strengths.
And I think, there's a term out there that says, if it's not me, then who? Right. And I don't want to live a life that at the end of it, I sit back and think, well, did somebody ever step up because I didn't? You know what I mean? Because if we're given a certain space in life, and I do believe this is that we have we have a voice, we have a destiny, we have something that we are really good at, and we have things that we're really passionate about. And to keep that away, that gift away from the rest of the world, is the opportunity to not pave the way for others behind us, right? And like you talked about, to be able to set the example for our children. I want my children, I mean, they're all grown at this point, but I want them all to know and understand what a strong woman looks like. You know, I want them to know what a woman who, with empathy and with kindness, and a woman who leads with empathy and kindness, looks like. And I want them to know what a woman is who listens, but yet at the same point isn't swayed by popular opinion, who uses their logic and who uses their mind. So even whenever we have basic conversations, even in the house, that's really important to me. So I want to bring that to my team. I want to bring that to my community, and I want to bring that to the people that I love, because the reality is that, you know, is that somebody will hear something that you say and be inspired by it. And we never know when those moments are. And the really crazy thing is that we can almost guarantee that the moments that we orchestrate, that we think are somehow epiphany driven and everybody's going to get so much from this one point. That's the one point nobody will get. Everybody will get whatever they need from it, because we're all individual. And if we hold back our greatness, then we're allowing other people to hold back their greatness. And I don't want that for my daughter. My daughter will be 25 this year. She's entered the insurance industry. But no matter what she did, I want her to embrace her awesomeness. And I want you to. I want the people that I meet at all these conferences and all these places I go and things that I do, and I want my team to do that. We've contracted with a group that's going to be able to talk to my team specifically about their strengths and where they need a little bit of improvement as far as our work styles, and how we can work together and how we can understand each other's strengths and each other's areas where maybe we want to be able to grow. And then we can also get education, or we can get empowerment around some of those things, because I want my team to be happy. I want my team to embrace their greatness. But it's intentional. It's not, life doesn't come together as an accident. It has to be to where we're available and we're open, but we're also intentional about the fact that we bring our very best. And that means sometimes we have to get out of our comfort zone, whether or not we're supposed to be, or we're the universe's ultimate, very best person to have this conversation. That's not my responsibility. I'm in this moment and I need to be able to bring my best. And I think that when we embrace that, we can somehow feel that we at least did our very best. I don't need to be the do all end all in the world. I just need to be able to bring my best today. And when I let myself off the hook like that, then I can find that comfort zone, that I think that's where people can get a lot of good value in mutual conversations.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you on all those points, because like the imposter syndrome, I mean, it can indicate that you're challenging yourself, like you're saying. Like, it could be an indication of something not wrong with you, but that you're striving. But you got to get your mind wrapped around the idea that, you know, and anytime you're challenging yourself, you're going to feel uncomfortable. And you're not going to feel always your most confident self, because it's not like you're like, I could do this in my sleep. Like, no, you haven't done it before. It's okay that you haven't done it before. And so you're challenging yourself. It doesn't make you less than anybody else. It doesn't mean you're not supposed to be there. It just means you have work to do and things to learn. And it's an opportunity, not a, a definition of who you are as a person.
And I think too, we need to realize that doesn't mean that's my place forever. Right. Mm-hmm. I mean, I might have a season in that space, in that conversation, but it doesn't mean it has to be my torch to carry forever. And I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves. And I think especially women do. I think people see themselves as I think a lot of business owners that are great visionaries see themselves as growing and moving and changing, and almost like a sport, right? Like they're dodging and they're moving and they're throwing the ball and they're catching the ball and they're really working that. But I think sometimes people see themselves as that strong oak tree, and we need to be that strong sense of security, which I don't disagree with either version of our careers, because I do believe that we are both at certain times. But I think that we have to see the fact that we can change, that we can grow, that we can mold, and that it might be my torch to carry today, that this is my space to have this conversation. But maybe in, a couple of years, that's not supposed to be my space anymore. And that's okay, because maybe somebody else will step up to be able to carry that torch in the next phase of whatever this needs to be. So I think we need to let ourselves off the hook for this perfection that we think that we have to be able to have, and this longevity of significance that somehow we're supposed to magically have all the words all the time. And if we step into some of these uncomfortable situations where we're growing, we can also understand that there's also going to be other people who need to be able to occupy that space, and it doesn't all have to be on our shoulders.
Yeah, I think it's the flip side of you have imposter syndrome when you're striving for something and you've reached something and you're like, maybe I'm not good enough at this level, right? But then there's also the flip side, is that now that like I'm reaching towards 50 and a lot of my friends are in their 50s and 60s now, that which is I'm very comfortable with my almost 50ness. But
Girl,
that
mine's I don't know when this is going to be published, but today is May 12th and my birthday is May 23rd. So I've got,
oh, that's right. Happy
and I
birthday.
turned 50. So I'm right
Yay.
there. I'm right there. So I mean, I'm in my last days of. I was talking to somebody this morning, and they were like, "The sun is setting on your 40s." It was like, really? Are we really going to go there?
No,
But
you're leaping into, I've heard that 50 is like the best decade of your life.
well, I'm
But I
ready.
think it's the flip side of it is that once you've achieved and you achieved and you achieved and you keep going for that, you may have dealt with imposter syndrome throughout the achievement, but then you flip over to, I want to give back to others and
Mhm.
myself, usually about this time period. And then you got to have the imposter syndrome of like, well, is there something wrong with me? Because now I don't want to drive anymore. I don't want to push as hard. And I let my agencies know when I'm mentoring them, I'm like, if you can throw back the throttle and you don't have to push so hard, you're in what I call the sweet spot, right? You're
Mhm.
going to get the things where you're able to give a bit more and you don't have to drive as much and you're financially a lot more comfortable. And it makes people uncomfortable at that point too. So you got to like go like it's okay, and don't have
Yep.
other people try and tell you it's not okay. And the same with your team. I think that's really important with your team. They may not want to be where you're at, which is most likely they absolutely don't want to be where you're at, because they would if they wanted it, but they
Right.
don't. So honor and respect that maybe this is the position of their life, that is their sweet spot too, whether they're going to be almost 50 or not almost 50, but maybe that's their sweet spot. And if they're doing really well for your organization, then don't push them to where you want them to be, but
Mhm.
are they really effective for you? And is that their sweet spot? Because if you start pushing them outside of that sweet spot for them, then I think what's going to happen is that imposter syndrome will kick in.
Yep.
That they're like I shouldn't be doing this, and I'm not good enough. You're messaging that instead of saying, like, if they're doing an awesome job where they're at and they don't want to grow to where you think they should be going, maybe it's okay.
And I think maybe, if they have a little bit of imposter syndrome, right? So it leave the door open for them, right? So maybe when we have that first conversation with them, hey, I would love for you to maybe grow into this area of the agency or pick up this additional space or something. I think, to me, we need to give them room to get comfortable there too, and
Mm-hmm.
not to be able to offer it. And if they say, well, I'm not really comfortable with that, just to be able to sit back and say, oh, well, that's fine, and never come back to them again. Right. I mean, part of our responsibility as leaders is to give them that space to grow when they are ready to grow, right?
Yeah.
Everything's a season. I mean, I'm probably over season generated with my philosophies in life, that I like right now is not my season for blank, but it is my season for blank. And we need
Yeah.
to understand our team is that way too. If somebody's got little kids at home, if somebody's, running around, they're maybe their spouse travels a lot, or maybe they're in the middle of a chaotic situation with a parent or whatever it might be, maybe taking a little bit more responsibility at work might be too stressful for them at that time.
Mm-hmm.
But when life settles down a little bit, they might go, oh, I think I might be really, really ready for that. So
Mm-hmm.
I think holding space for the people that we love to watch them grow is a part of helping people to combat that imposter syndrome. Because as we look at it, and one of my favorite things to do is to talk to people that know me really well. And whenever I am struggling with something, to just be open and really honest with that and just ask for their feedback. And my daughter and I have this thing. A good friend of mine, Robbie Epstein, told me this. She said, Teresa, she said, do you want me to listen? Do you want me to give advice? Or do you want me to be your cheerleader whenever we talk? And I'm like, right now, I just want you to listen. So then, you know what? I'm just listening. That's fine. Then, my daughter and I sometimes will talk about stuff and Mom, listen. I'm like, okay, that's great. I'm listening. And then all of a sudden it's just silence. And she's like, are you there? And I'm like, yeah, of course I'm here. I'm here. And she goes, oh, now I want your advice. I'm like, okay, now we're going to switch gears. And I think that's what we need to take into consideration with our team is that right now in this time, they're not open for that next set of conversation. Maybe they just want to talk to you about things, but then the next steps seem really scary to them and they're not ready for it. So if we can approach our team, if we can approach our family, if we can approach life, whatever it is, because to me, imposter syndrome is not just work. It is, I think, where it really flourishes more. But I think it does really transcend into all areas of our life. And if we can just listen to what's going on around us and give it space to be able to be the right place, the right time for the right person to take the right steps forward, but we leave the space open for them. I think that combats a lot of that imposter syndrome because then you're ready to some degree. But there's also in us, we have to cultivate that braveness, that courage to be able to say, step over those feelings, step over those thoughts, and really embrace where it is that we're going. And I think that's so important for us to leave that space for our team to for them to find their own voice.
Yeah. And I think going into the personal side of it, that we have it exist there, whether we're male or female. This isn't just exclusive to women.
Right.
We just tend to do it to the nth degree. I feel like this is like, we excel at the imposter syndrome. And so, but we as like, I'll give you an example. I have two sons and we adopted my daughter, and I had a bit of the imposter syndrome that maybe I wasn't a good enough mom because I worked and I was driven, and she might need a lot more attention than I was able to give because I travel. And I was going through all of these things in my head, and my husband said the best thing he probably could have said for him. So I'm going to give him total like brownie points for this. He told me, he said, but you're the mom that's showing up. You're the mom that's trying. You're the mom that is there and does spend quality time. You may not be a taxi driver, but you're the mom that's showing up. You know, her biological mom did not show up. Her two other families that were going to adopt her did not show up. You're choosing her. You're choosing to love her. And so you are doing more than any mom she's ever had before. So stop beating yourself up, you know. And if you're a new mom and you're working and you're like, well, I'm not staying home with, with the kids, so I must be not a good mom. Like, I'm an imposter as a mother. And then the flip side of that too is like, okay, I'm staying home with, the kids, but I'm not, adding income, or I don't have a career. And then, I'm not whole as a mother and as a woman. And you put that label on yourself too. Like, that's not necessary. Like, I don't, it's, you're a stay-at-home mom or you have a career. You should just choose, right? Yeah. Like, there isn't that. There is the, I do the time buckets where I allocate my time, and I can see when the bucket is getting empty with my family. I can see when the bucket of time I haven't been putting into myself or, my business, and I need to reallocate the time into that bucket so it doesn't become completely empty. But it doesn't mean I'm less than a person because maybe two of my buckets are really low. And right now my work bucket for the month of May is super filled to the top, probably spilling over. And the ones, for myself and for my family, it is just a little bit low. But I'm about to go take a month and a half and work from Hawaii. And I'm going to work from 4 o'clock in the morning Hawaii time till noon. And then I'm going to take the time. And of course, my kids are probably still not even up yet, right?
Right.
And I'm going to take that time and I'm going to dedicate it to them.
Yeah.
So I can get some of that time with them. That's quality time. And I think about, like, I love my parents. They did an awesome job. But I feel like a lot of our generation, like during the summers, we were left to our own devices. There
Yep.
wasn't like dedicated time every single day for us to spend with our parents and our family. So I'm like, I'm going to take quality over quantity with my kids. And I don't want to be their maid. I have somebody clean my house. I don't want to be their taxi driver.
Yep.
My husband does that for me. I'm very fortunate. But you just got to look at it that way, that there isn't stay-at-home moms versus career moms. There isn't that. Or if you're somewhere in between, like, you're not an imposter mother at all.
Right. And I think we need to be able to realize we can have it all, just not at the same time. And we can be this amazing mom and spend that time, or parent, we can be that amazing parent. But it's about, just like we talk about intentionally being available and being present for our team, it's intentionally being present for our children, intentionally being present for our parents, intentionally being present for our friends. At any one moment, wherever we are, that is where we need to be. So as long as I could be a stay-at-home mom, driving my kids around, but if I'm not spending time with them, having conversations, being intentional about talking to them and being a part of them, I'm not necessarily mentoring them and growing them and feeding them what they need at that time. And I think sometimes those of us who have these different buckets, a lot more segregated, I can have it all, but I just don't have it all at one moment, right? Right now, maybe I'm spending time on my team. This moment, I'm spending time on my family. This moment, but the thing is, we really need to be present, and we need to be able to navigate that. And when our family or when our team member says, hey, can I have a little bit of your time? We need to be 110% there, because I think that authenticity and that connection is what mentoring, and not even just mentoring, but just what connection is really all about. And I think for imposter syndrome, we're worried. I think one of the biggest things about imposter syndrome is we think about other people's opinions that they're not going to express to us. And we put out there that other people aren't going to value us the way that we want to, but they're going to not tell us to our face. Do we really do? Okay. Do we not? Do we, and there's this back and forth of coulda, shoulda, woulda. Right. And, we need to be able to just bring our best and let that be that. And whether or not I'm spending time with my family, I need to bring my best. If I'm spending time with my team, I need to bring my best. If I'm spending time with my dad, I need to be able to bring my best. And I don't need to be kind of muddying the waters, because the reality is that that's what creates, the grass is always greener on the other side, right? Is that somehow I need to be better. I need to do this. I need to do that. And somebody once said, and I can't remember, I heard it. I have all these things that I can't remember. I hear them in life, but we should all over ourselves. Like, don't should all over other people, right? So if I say, well, I should do this, or I should do that, or other people should do this, or other people should do that, we need to step away and just let people be who they are. So that way we can help to develop them, even though they may have fears, but they can, step over them, or they can sit back and say, this is my time for this. And next month I'm going to go to Hawaii and I'm going to navigate my time. And this is my time for this bucket, and I love that you're really intentional about that.
Yeah. And the should have on people, like, all the time, we need to stop doing that to people. And especially like women, we're like, the judgments on mothers because they do certain things, like, you're a mother that wants your kids to eat gluten-free, like, oh, like that's her preference. That doesn't make you more right because you're saying that. It doesn't make her more wrong, but we're doing that. Like, what purpose does that serve? Like, they're doing, people are,
Zero.
none. So why we need to have that judgment? It's just our opinion,
Yeah.
right? It
Well,
doesn't
and
mean that it's better.
people's opinions are based on their perceptions. So
Yes.
we need to understand that people can see something. Like I can sit back and somebody can hand me a cookie and it has peanuts in it. I don't like peanuts. I just don't like peanuts. It's just my thing. I just don't like peanuts, and the whole world may hate me for it, but I just don't like peanuts. It's not about the other person, that they took the time to be able to bake my cookies, and that they bought these or brought these specifically for me, and that they really thought about these because these were their favorite cookies. And and I love the fact that people made love on me that way, and I will honor that and I will love it. But if I don't like sit down and eat the whole box, it's not a personal comment about them, right? And we need to be able to see that what we bring to the table, if it's not as received the way that we want it to be received, it doesn't mean that it's about us. It means that it's about the other person who is receiving it, or maybe listening to us as we're talking on the stage or on a podcast, or even with our team, or even to my kids. They will receive as they need to receive, and they receive when the time is right. And again, they don't always receive what I think I'm putting out there. They receive what they need. And again, there is a God, and I am not it. I am not the one who decides what this person needs and what this person needs to take away from this conference or conversation or, team meeting or, powwow around a campfire with my kids as we're making s'mores. My job is to be present and to bring my very best.
Well, what if we were more curious instead of trying to cut people down? Ask questions. Ask them, well, tell me why you chose to go gluten-free.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to hear about that. You don't have to agree with it to be curious, but you don't have to put them down. You don't have to cut them down. Ask the questions. I mean, if you think about all of the things that professionally we shouldn't talk about, and even sometimes when we get together with family, do not talk about politics, do not talk about religion. Why can't we just have a curious conversation?
Yeah.
Not a judgmental and cutting down conversation, but a curious conversation, because maybe we'll learn something that we didn't know before, and maybe, about the world.
Yeah.
And sometimes we might learn something about ourselves too. And
True.
so if you're cutting somebody off because you need to be right, then maybe you're not allowing something to come in for yourself too. Yeah. So you're doing them a disservice, and you're also doing yourself a disservice by not being curious, by cutting them down and just, going in that direction. Think about it, if the whole United States was more curious and focused on that than just cutting down one another to prove that what they believe is right.
So true. I think we'd make such huge strides as humanity, to be able to really listen to what each other is doing and why they're doing it. There's the great story with Maya Angelou. She was overseas eating at this beautiful house for dinner, and this lady had a rug and she had it out, and everybody's walking around the rug. She's like, oh my gosh, this beautiful rug, it's meant to be stepped on, it's meant to be walked on, it's a rug, it's on the floor, and everybody's standing around the rug. So she goes to be able to go stomp on the rug. Do everybody come with me, let's go walk on the rug. Right. Well, it ended up that then all of a sudden people came and they rolled up the rug, and then they brought a fresh rug and they rolled out the fresh rug. And she was like, what is going on? All of a sudden the food came out, and it was in a culture where they eat on the ground on a rug. And she was like, oh my gosh, I just stomped all over this person's table where everybody is going to be eating. And it's because she didn't know, she didn't understand, right? That was a different culture, a different way of working, a different way of eating than what she had been exposed to in the past. And here she thought she was a trailblazer and that she was cutting through, but the reality was she just didn't understand the culture. And I've really taken that into consideration, because as we step into new worlds, sometimes we want to walk in and we want to be, the shiznit, right? We want to walk on in. We want to be the smartest, the prettiest, the largest agency, the best team, the lowest turnover, the best retention rate. Woohoo. We want to be all these things, right? The best mom. My kids are attorneys and they're great people and they've got all these degrees and they have 18 kids and they're just the best thing ever. But the reality is that might not be the story of whatever's going on with the other people in our lives. And we have to be able to take it for what it is and love it for what it is and respect other people in that process. And I've really internalized that story, because I know sometimes I'll walk in and go, here, I know the better way to do it. And I don't. And I've learned so much from especially agency owners, when we can walk on in and be in a mastermind group or a peer group where we can be humble and we can listen. There's always that person. I think we've all been in these groups where there's one person who wants to tell other people how to be able to fix whatever it is that they're trying to work on, right? Even if you're like at a church group, if you're in a mastermind group, if anywhere that you are, there's always one person who's like, oh, well, this is what I do. And that's supposed to somehow like end the conversation or something. I always think that's not the person I want to hang out with for the night. That's just not
absolutely not.
So I just, I think we have to realize we have a choice on who we spend time with, where we spend our time, who we pour into, and we don't need to control that conversation. We just need to be available. And by doing that, I think it takes a lot of stress off ourselves and helps to kind of combat a little bit of that imposter syndrome.
I just, connection as I get older is key.
Yeah.
In connecting with the people that feed my soul. I'm okay with people that I connect with that challenge my soul too.
Yeah.
Like my husband, he challenges me. He's not a challenging person, but he does challenge me. And I think, 20 years of marriage, that it's helped us. That it used to be before I would be like full on force defensive.
Yeah.
And I was like, nope, that's not how I am. That's not what I'm doing. And that's not how I'm showing up. Like,
Yep.
Just defensive. And then I really started thinking about it. I'm like, is his intention to tell me that I suck? I don't think his intention is to tell me that I suck. I think his intention is that he loves me and I'm not really showing up the way that I want to show up. And
Yep.
He's trying to tell me that. And so once I realized that's where it come from, I do sometimes still have to fight that feeling of like, well, that's not true. But I'm like, okay, tell me more. Let's talk about this. And then I take a breath, I listen, become more curious. And then I'm like, okay, he cares about me. And I'm going to have some humble pie right now. And then try and take this as a lesson and move forward from it. Like some days I'm awesome at that. And some days I am not so awesome at that. But no matter what, his intentions are good and that he will love me after the conversation. And you just got to keep that in your heart.
Yeah. And I think in your head too, because I think whenever that part of that conversation of listening to what's going on inside of our spirits is that whenever those moments come up that are challenging, telling yourself, stop and just receive. Mm-hmm. I don't need to respond. I don't need to argue. I don't need to rebut. I don't need to, it's okay. It's okay to just receive this moment, right? I mean, I had somebody at Christmas and came to me at a Christmas party at church and said, hey, Teresa, I think that you would be better served if you did this rather than this. And it was very odd to me because it was in a very kind of, like they pulled me aside. They said, can I have a moment with you? I said, sure. And this person came to me and said, well, I really think that it would be better if you did this rather than this. And I was like, well, who in the heck are you? In my head, I was like, really? Is that what we're doing here at a church Christmas party? Is this really the space? Is it, and my brain went nuts. But I just sat there and in my head, I was like, you know what? Receive. You know what? This is something that you need to just decide on your own if it's important. If it's not important, I love you. You're awesome. You're amazing. Thank you so much for telling me such, what your heart was. And I appreciate you, but that doesn't mean I have to do anything with it if I don't want to. It's still my life. I can still choose if I want to respond. But at the same point, I was just like, okay, thank you. I'm gonna really think about this. And I appreciate you having the courage to come and talk to me about this. And I appreciate, your willing spirit to be able to help me grow in my life. And I just let it go. And then I went home and I really thought about it. And this person's a friend of mine and we would go out as couples like once every quarter or something. And then this person reached out and said, let's go out for dinner. And I was like, Do I really want to do that? I don't know, and I was like, no, Teresa, receive, be humble, and so we have, and everything's great in our relationship, but I had to kind of step over my personal feelings and listen to that voice again, that voice that came on in. Well, who is she? What does she need to be able to talk to me about? Blah, blah, blah. And the reality is, I need to just sit back and say, you know what? There may be value in this moment that I may not be seeing right now. And I need to just receive. And then I can release if I don't feel like it applies to me. But I at least need to give that person the honor that they took the courage to be able to talk to me about what was on their heart. But it's still my choice if I do or internalize what it is that they tell me. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Like, I still have that choice. And I don't think sometimes we give ourselves the option to have a choice. We just think somehow we're supposed to do what other people come to us and tell us that they think we need to change. And we don't. We need to give ourselves freedom to not feel that we have to.
No, because if we did everything that everybody else said, we're not being authentic to who we are. Right. You're gonna have to pass it through your own filter. Like, does it apply? Does it not apply? Is there something that could apply from it? And then, or do you need more clarity from the person? Because when you tell me that story of you and your friend, it makes me think that you run it through the filter like you did, right? But then it's also like, do you need more data points to understand where they're coming from? So, like, be curious, like I was saying, ask the questions, because like our instant reactions to most things is genuinely awful most of it. Yes. Like, if people could hear like, they're like, hey, you're like here all the time. I'm like, no, in my head I'm over up here and I am cursing like a sailor, and I'm like a hot freaking mess over here. But I worked on my emotional intelligence through the years, and I would say as a leader, I didn't realize how important that was until I actually started working on it and being consciously aware of it. Everyone says, oh, you need to, work on sales in your business and this on your business. All decisions are based off of emotion. And yet this is the least thing that we train ourselves and our team on. And we don't give ourselves moments. We don't give our team moments to be able to learn through those emotions or talk through those emotions. We will bury them, but everything is decided on emotions, including your business and everybody in your business. So, but we bury it.
We do. And we feel ashamed to talk about our emotions, I think, sometimes. And I think men and women both feel some days like we can't, especially as leaders, show that we're struggling with something. And if our team brings us something that might challenge us, if our spouse brings us something that might challenge us, or, like a business acquaintance or a client brings something that maybe says, hey, maybe we need to level up. I think we need to just sit in that for a little bit, and just be for a little bit, because we go into self-judgment, we go into judgment of them, we go into judgment of the carpet, the paint on the walls. We want to judge everything in that moment in my space. Everything sucks, right? In that moment, because we think somehow we're being judged, so we lash out, I think, emotionally, even at ourselves, right? And I think we just need to sit in that space and love them for what they're bringing. But again, realize that through our own authenticity with that filter, is that who we choose to be, and especially I think with Facebook, sometimes I can see people's posts about their job or what their vacations they go on, or their awesome kids that are doing all these things. And, or how big their agency is. We just made this milestone of this much revenue per month, or whatever it might be, right? And I think sometimes I sit back and I think, oh, well, I wish I could be there. I wish I could. I wish. And again, it's part of that should all over people, right? Should I be in that space? But yet at the same point, that's not my space. That's not who I am. That's not my level of authenticity for what I want for my agency. And it's maybe not what I want for my family, or it's not what is in my children's authenticity line. And we need to be able to really take into consideration our own uniqueness and how we have our own gift to be able to give to the world. And that really means that we don't need to be distracted by these other things. I mean, we can use them to encourage us and to push us further, and maybe to help us create dreams. But at the same point, we still need to be able to run that through our filter of authenticity.
Oh, absolutely. Before this meeting, I had one of my team members that he came to me and he started the meeting because I have trained them. If you are having a moment that doesn't allow you to be like come to the table 100% focused on what we're going to be working on, let me know. Let's get it out. Let's move it forward, especially if it has to deal with like, the organization, people you work with, but
Right.
even if it's personal. And he had something that was personal and he put it out there and he said, hey, he's like, I have some personal stuff. It's going through this. I'm not going to get to the details of it, but I'm not coming 100%, but I want to. And I'm trying and get there through our conversation. But I just need to tell you that I'm struggling a little bit right now, but I'm aware of the struggle, right? If
Yeah.
you put awareness on the struggle, I don't even know what it is that he's going on with him at all. Even after the conversation, as an owner and as somebody that's leading somebody, you don't need the details. Don't make
Right.
them go through the details. If they're comfortable with telling you the details, as long as they don't linger in those details and dwell in those details, then let them have an open space. But if they're not, you don't need to do that. But the fact that he was comfortable enough to say, I'm a bit off, shows high emotional intelligence for him. It
Yeah.
shows that we've spent a decade almost working together, that he feels comfortable enough that this is a safe place for him to say that. And then,
Mm,
afterwards he was like, I'm just so thankful that you are good with us coming to you and letting you know that, hey, I'm struggling a little bit, but I do want to bring my best self, because
yeah.
I know they do. I don't have
Mhm.
like when they have family issues and stuff going on and they're stressed or whatever, and they're showing up not as their best selves, you know, I don't think they have intentions of not wanting to show
Right.
up on their best self. Life just sometimes gets messy, right? Like,
And
let me know you're coming in hot. Like, I
yep.
want to know you're coming in hot, you're angry, whatever. Like, what do you need to get? I don't need to know why you are, unless you're mad at me. Let's clear that out. But if what do you need to get you to a place where
Yeah.
you don't feel like you're coming in hot? Right? Because if you're coming in hot and it has something to do with somebody else and we don't clear that out, you're going to be coming in after me.
After me.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't want that.
Or another team member. Right. I
Right,
mean, you may
exactly. You're
react to
taking it
something in
out
a
on
meeting.
everybody else. Like
Right.
you don't want that for your team. And so, like, how do we let people know, like, it's okay that you're human?
Mhm.
It's okay. Like, you're going to have a moment. I'm not going to define you by that moment. Here's a moment. I have moments. I come in and some days I'm like, okay, I have been batshit crazy part of today. I will completely admit that I was
Yep.
a little off, right? And I think if you do that as a leader and you're able to, I make fun of myself. Like, that's
Yep.
like,
You need
that's,
to. I think it's
you need
important
to.
to be able to do so, not in a demeaning way. I think people can take it in a
No.
bad way. So I want to make sure we're clear on that. But we need to have a
Mhm.
sense of humor.
Yes. It helps people feel more comfortable. And because I do it with myself, they can do it themselves too.
Yeah.
And then they can say, the key though is to not linger in that moment. It's the key is to be like, okay, I need to get out of this moment, but I need to like at least say it out loud. And
Yeah.
then I can go, okay, yeah, okay, I'm done being batshit crazy. I think I'm gonna go this direction now. I'm
Yeah.
there. Like, I'm good now. It
Yep.
doesn't mean you solved all the problems that created that moment. It means that you're not going to stay in that moment.
Mhm. I think part of being authentic is exactly what you're saying, but it's also asking for what you need. Like maybe
Mhm,
coming into a meeting and saying, right now where I'm at, I'm not in a really healthy mental space right now, but I'm
mhm.
here. I'm gonna work through this. But if I say something, just kind of take it into consideration. I'm not in the best mental space, right? And I think that's really a very honest way to be able to come at being able to coexist with other people, whether it's our family, like I said, work, whatever. Because a year and a half ago when I lost my son, there was months where my brain just was not working. I was overly emotional. I was overly reactive to certain things, and my ability to monitor and work the thoughts in my head to where I was a productive member of society for a good portion of time was work. And it was emotionally draining by 11 a.m. for me just to bring that amount of my day to be able to bring my best that amount of the day. For me to be at a meeting at 1 o'clock, I was emotionally drained, right? Like I just needed to be done by noon, even when I was able to show up. And we need to know that we don't know everything that's going on with people. We don't know all the things that are going on in their head, or we might know that maybe they've had a death in the family, but we don't know all the circumstances or the things that are going on in their head, their heart, their space. Do they have to, have certain responsibilities around that activity, right? And I think if we can ask people, and I tell my team this all the time, ask for what you need. Ask for what you need, because you know what? If we're going out for dinner and we're going to have dinner and you hate sushi and you ask me what I want and I love sushi, I say, let's go out for sushi. And you say, okay. And then you're angry because we went out for sushi and you hated sushi. It's not my responsibility. Yeah. I'm sorry. You should have spoken up. But it's the same thing as, if we're doing something at work, if we're doing something at home, I need to make sure that my team and my family and the people around me know it's safe to be able to ask for what they want. And I try to make sure I give them permission to do so, because that's what I need from them, because I'm not a mind reader and I'm going through my own junk. They're going through their own junk. And if we can ask for what we need, then we can be able to work better together. And I think that helps us to be able to really kind of overcome that imposter syndrome, because we have the freedom to not only say, I can step up here, but maybe I need to step back here. And we have that freedom to be authentic in that space. So I think that even if we're pushing and growing and we're pushing our own boundaries and we're really stepping up to be there for other people, it also means sometimes we need to ask for help. And I think that helps us on that space to be more authentic.
Yeah, I think addressing the imposter syndrome for yourself and then recognizing it in other people, it just means that you're going to be other focused. You're going to be focused on other people and be able to help them, interpersonally be more effective as human beings, not just effective at work.
Right.
Like our goal to just make them effective at work, or would we like to inspire them to be more effective and happier as a human being for,
overall,
what works, right? Overall. Right. And for works with them. Like my team has the most varied variety of hobbies. Right. And I think it's so cool to see what they're doing. And a lot of those hobbies I would have no interest in doing myself. Right. But that doesn't mean that I can't recognize that that's what they do, and they enjoy it. And like I said, I get to ask them questions about it. And they don't have to feel like the imposter syndrome of are the things that I enjoy in life, okay, right? Or hide those things. And you don't want them to feel like they're not good enough either.
True.
Even though human beings are completely messy, a lot of the time. A lot of times, even if we think we have our stuff together, we don't have everything together. It is not possible to have everything together.
True.
So that's what you're saying. You can have a lot of the things together, but there's always something I always call it going rogue. There's something in my life going rogue. If I can identify what is going rogue, then my brain will feel better. My body will feel better sometimes. And then my mind will feel better if I can recognize it. And I think just putting your mind on it and recognizing that imposter syndrome, if it doesn't exist in you and you've never had that issue, then bless you, because it's something that some of us have to battle. But it's also like one of my team members, when she went to the WISE workshop, she had said, I never knew there was a name for how I felt. And so she said, just putting the name on it and knowing that I wasn't the only person that felt that way, that it gave her relief.
Well, she's not alone.
Right.
We're not crazy. We think we're the only ones who can't figure out life, right? We think we're the only ones who blah, 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 and the reality is no, and even the people who, we see out there doing the thing, they are fighting against a lot of times their own challenges to be able to do the thing, whatever that thing is, and by hearing other people tell their story and their journey, it helps us to know that ours is okay.
Yeah. So I end my podcast with 5 fast questions that I want to know
Okay.
about you. You ready?
And I don't know what these are, everybody. So if
I know. I like to just spring it on you. So
all right,
they're
let's
not
do it.
difficult things. It's just things that I wonder and get to know. What is the most recent book that you have read?
So right now I am reading a great book called The Aftermath about the women and the spies in World War II, after World War II, that helped to bring down kind of the Nazi kind of finding the people that needed to come to justice kind of thing. And I love that kind of thing. I do seasons where I do workbooks, and then I do seasons where I do fiction books. And right now my brain just needs to relax at the end of the day. And I love strong women figuring things out kind of books. So that's what I'm reading.
You would love to talk to Heather. She loves history. Like most of her books
Love it.
are
Love
on
it.
history and then fiction within history.
Yeah.
So if you had one food to eat for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Sushi. I love sushi.
I love making sushi. It's so much fun.
You know
with the
what? I've
kids.
not really tried making sushi. I would love to learn how.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. So here's another question for you. What is your favorite game to play with others, like board game or dice game or cards?
I love cards. I love cards. Pretty much any cards game. I love games where we can talk, where we can communicate. I think some of the best conversations are over a puzzle at the dining room table, or they're over a nice game of cards, right? And you laugh and you bring up, oh no, don't do that. And there's all sorts of funny things around it. I like games where you can kind of relax and talk. And so I'm a big there's a whole bunch of variations of dominoes. I love to do those. We do chicken foot. We do something train. I can't remember. That's the newest one that we do. But I also love like Shanghai Rummy. I love games where I can sit, enjoy, play cards or play something, but it's not like super intense to where everybody's trying to like outdo everybody.
So if you could pick one word to describe what we do within the independent channel for our clients, what would that one word be?
The one word that we do, honestly, I'm kind of struggling between serve and educate. Those are my two probably right there. I'm going to say serve. Serve is more important. Educating goes along with serving. I think it's a part of it because people need to understand what's going on, but to be able to listen, to be able to serve, not just to throw numbers out, not just to be able to tell people what's going on and move on to the next person, but to serve, to listen, and to really be present in those conversations with our clients.
I totally agree. Thank you so much for being on our podcast today, but also just like declaring it with me that we need to have open conversations about confidence,
Yes.
about the imposter syndrome, and then get it out there. And like last time we talked about a brave place and a brave space, right, to have. So I'm hoping that by us doing these 2 podcasts together, that this is a brave place and space for people. So thanks so much, Teresa. I really appreciate you being a part of it, and I appreciate your friendship.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to create that brave space. And, I think it's a great thing, and I can't wait to listen to more. So keep it up. It's a great space for people to really come and show up with their most authentic self.